So just to remind you of what Nina was saying there, just describing what's happening, we've just seen the fastest rise in the cost of living for the last 40 years, inflation at 9%. Let's get some reaction to those figures now from Labour's Shadow Chancellor, Rachel Reeves. So, Rachel Reeves, we just had that number. Your reaction to that, not a great surprise.
Yesterday we saw that real wages are falling, and today we've just learned that inflation at 9% has reached a 40-year high. In Parliament yesterday, Labour called a vote on whether there should be a windfall tax on the big profits that North Sea oil and gas companies are making at the moment, to take money off the bills of ordinary families and pensioners. Every single Conservative MP voted against that. That is astonishing, given the scale of the cost of living crisis. Today in Parliament, Labour will be calling another vote and urging the government to introduce an emergency budget, because it is clear that the actions taken to date by the government do not meet the scale of the challenge. Families and pensioners are really struggling right now, and the government must urgently come forward with additional measures to help people with this incredible increase now in inflation.
We'll talk about an emergency budget and what might be in that in a moment, but I just want to talk about the windfall tax that you just mentioned. That is something that you have been calling for some weeks now. What would your reaction be? Because there are rumblings, aren't there, from the Conservatives that they might consider this.
Well, just get on with it. You know, I first called for this at the beginning of the year, and since then, the news has just got worse and worse and worse about the cost of living, about what's happening to wages, about the terrible sacrifices that some people are having to make. Pensioners who have not had the heating on because they can't afford it. Mums who are skipping meals to ensure that their children can eat. This should not be happening in Britain in the second decade of the 21st century. But it is. And it's happening because the government are not acting. And it is now urgent, with the numbers that we see today, that the government do more. And the government say they're looking at it. Well, what more evidence do they need that a windfall tax is essential to help people who are really struggling with these bills that just keep going up and up and up?
You say the bills are going up and up and up. A windfall tax would be in place, wouldn't it, for, say, it would help for 12 months. But actually, people are going to be struggling for longer than that. What would you do about that?
Well, inflation is expected to peak not at 9%, but 10% later this year. That's what the Bank of England and others are predicting. So we do need help this year when we are in the eye of the storm. But as part of Labour's emergency budget that we have proposed, includes measures to properly insulate people's homes, to take money off people's gas and electricity bills, not just for 1 year, but £400 off people's bills for each and every year. Those are some of the practical things the government could be doing to ease the pressure now, but also help people in the future too.
OK, let's talk about this emergency budget specifically. How would you do that? How would you be taking money off their bills, and where would the tax cuts come?
So the main piece of the emergency budget must be the windfall tax, and that would take up to £600 off people's bills. But in addition, the government
about VAT?
Well, so we've said that VAT on gas and electricity bills should be taken from 5% to 0. That would take money off everybody's gas and electricity bills. But given we know that it is families and pensioners on lower and modest incomes that are struggling most, and there are some terrible, horrific stories about people skipping meals and not having the heating.
OK, let's talk. We've spoken about that, and I'm just aware we haven't got much time. So I just want to ask you specifically, what about the warm homes discount? What would you change on that?
So we would expand that from £140 currently to £400, and also increase the eligibility from 3 million households today to 9 million households, because we know more and more people are slipping into poverty and slipping into fuel poverty. So a big expansion of the warm homes discount, taking VAT off gas and electricity bills to help everybody. And if we introduce a windfall tax on the big profits that are being made by North Sea oil and gas companies, we would be able to afford those practical measures to help people now with the rising costs.
That is a policy that we don't know, do we, but we may see the Tories come around to at some point. Chancellor Rishi Sunak said yesterday, didn't he, he said that it would be a mistake for the government to try using unrestrained borrowing to address the cost of living crisis at the moment. Does Labour support the UK borrowing more money?
We're proposing a windfall tax on people that are making huge profits. So we're saying not borrow more, but ask for a bigger contribution from those people that are making big profits. You know, the chief executive of BP said that his company has got more money than they know what to do with.
And how much would the windfall tax raise?
The windfall tax could raise £2 or £3 billion, and that is money that could be used right now to relieve the pressure.
Is it? I know it captures the imagination, doesn't it? The windfall tax is a really popular idea, but actually even that is not enough.
So we're urging government to do other things as well, like, for example, to cancel the national insurance contribution increase. We're the only G7 economy that is increasing taxes on working people right in the middle of a cost of living crisis. But the windfall tax represents a choice that government could be making. The government has to make choices about who to tax and who to spare. And this government are just whacking up taxes on working people. And we're saying, actually, there is a different way to approach this crisis, and that is asking those with the broadest shoulders, including those gas and oil companies, to pay more in tax at the moment when people are really struggling with their bills. So the windfall tax to relieve pressure on people's bills, spiking the hike in the national insurance contributions so that working people keep more of their own money in their pockets, and a big programme of home insulation to ensure that we boost our energy security and take money off people's bills permanently.
Rachel Reeves, thank you.
Thank you.